Welcome to this episode of Smart Levers. In the earlier episode, we spoke about curiosity diet, and now we're going to talk about a vegetable, right? So, what is this vegetable that we're going to talk about? Briefly, talk to me about what this whole story is all about. I'm very curious about this.
Right. So we're talking about a pomodoro, and if that sounds like an exotic vegetable, no, it's just our humble tomato. And the tomato can help us be more productive, and that's the lesson of the Pomodoro method. So why are we talking about productivity when it comes to up leveling? And in some sense, I would consider it a basic foundation for up leveling. Just like you need to have the right diet, not just the right curiosity diet like we discussed in our previous episode, but just generally the right diet, the right sleep, the right physical exercises that give you the foundation to be an up leveler, because you cannot be in survival mode if you want to be an up leveler. So similarly, being productive is a foundation that will let you level up. You have to maintain your level and go up, because you have to make space for new activities and ideas. So the Pomodoro method was invented by an Italian student, and Pomodoro is Italian for tomato, uh, because he realized that he was having trouble maintaining a schedule. And uh, like anyone who's been a student, it is difficult, it is tough, it is a solo effort. And so you get tempted, you get distracted, you don't feel like doing it. And what he realized was that he could make himself last about 10-15 minutes at a stretch. And often when he started doing that, he could keep going. So starting is a big challenge for a lot of us. And so he started using a clock in the shape of a tomato. And so he called it his Pomodoro method. So the Pomodoro method is when you take or you do time blocking. You set aside short blocks of time. It could be 15 minutes. It could be longer as well, depending on what your challenges and what your motivation levels are like. And so what you do is you say that I have this writing assignment to do, and I'm not very confident at writing, and I've been procrastinating, and hence my productivity has suffered, and everything else I need to do has got delayed. So let me just set on my clock a 15-minute slot timer and say that let me just start writing in this. And when the clock stops, I give myself that guilt-free distraction. I can go check Twitter. I can take a walk around the park. I can play with toys. Doesn't matter what you do. And that, let's say that lasts for 5 minutes, and then the timer goes again. And then you come back for another sprint of 15 minutes. So you start doing these little sprints, little rest, and you suddenly find that you've strung together a decent productive outline. So the Pomodoro method, in short, short bursts of work and short bursts of relaxation.
Right. So, one question here, Ramanand. We usually talk about building systems and being very deliberate about it and making it part of our nature, habits, and all that. So, is doing something in bursts at odds with that whole philosophy of doing something as a habit?
Well, not entirely, because there is a limit to how much of a routine you can practice. You will get tired. Some habits are really difficult. And since we spoke about exercising, when you do an exercise routine, at some point you will run into fatigue. So the Pomodoro method just says that build an appropriate sort of a time block for your habit. No habit is going to be eternally run. And so, for an habit that you are very good at, let's say you are a good writer, but you just get distracted very often, then a Pomodoro can just give your brain that signal that let me turn off my phone. I know that I just have to survive 15 minutes, just 30 minutes. And if you're really good, sometimes you will find that you don't want to take that break. You're in that flow zone. And so you want to continue. For a lot of people, however, who are watching this, who are trying to build something new, take up a reading habit, post on LinkedIn for social capital, try and give a presentation, and prepare for that, rehearse for that. You've just been procrastinating around it. So as a starting trouble device, Pomodoro is a very, very useful thing to just get you started. So uh, I see it as something that should be part of your system, especially when something doesn't come naturally to you or when you're prone to distractions. That's where you can use the Pomodoro very effectively.
Okay. And a follow-up question to this follow-up question, Raman. So, do you think then this is more for starting trouble problems, or is this also in the space of deep work and setting aside that time to get really immersed and be in the flow?
Yes, I would say yes to both. Uh, for someone who's getting trouble started, do it. So I'll give you another example. You may be very good at your physical exercises. You may love your running, but there are certain days when you woke up a little groggily, or the weather outside looks like it's going to rain, and you are even though you're 365, 4 out of 365 days, you would have gone out by now. But this is that one day that your bed is beckoning you back. So you can just say, I'm just going to get started, right? I'm just going to take a 15-minute stroll out, and that's what you need to do. You just need to get over that step. So even for someone who's very good at a habit, this could be very useful. Now, coming to the other end, the Pomodoro doesn't always have to be 15 minutes. It could be longer as well. It is if you look at the principle behind it, it is really just taking a block of time and then signaling to yourself that this is what I'm going to do, and also shaping your environment to say that until this happens, I am not going to do something else. So then it's a battle against your ability to stay away distraction, to deal with willpower, to also create your environment that can hold for that 90 minutes, because there are going to be other demands on your time. So for if you have a deep work practice of say 90 minutes, uh, then your time block is 90 minutes. And then everything that you've not done in that 90 minutes, which is checking your email, checking your phone, taking a break, a refresher, getting your hydration in, maybe it all waits for 90 minutes. And then after that, you might find yourself just spent. You're going to look at your other chores, the things that you're not really interested in. And by the way, there also you can use a Pomodoro, because you can say that like cleaning your bed, it's just a mess. Just give myself a 5-minute Pomodoro, right, after your 90-minute break, 90-minute deep work Pomodoro, and suddenly you started clearing up. So I think you can use it intelligently for different durations as well.
Right. So I think the key is to know this whole concept of time bucketing, and the at the end of it also doing whatever else that you want to do in a guilt-free manner, and
Absolutely
then coming back to it. But what is important is also to think about this in a very adaptive manner. So different tasks, different kinds of work, different objectives for which you are doing it will demand different durations of how you do this as well.
correct.
Right?
And I would say that being reflective about is really important. Let's say it's not, you don't need to be dogmatic about it. So if you've got into the flow after 14 minutes, right, and you're really getting into writing or thinking, um, when the timer comes up, it doesn't mean that you have to take a break at this point, right? You
Right.
can be adaptive about it. And you can also know that the next time your Pomodoro perhaps should, for a task like that, should be a 30-minute Pomodoro, a 45-minute Pomodoro. So that is one thing. The other benefit of a Pomodoro, it becomes like a unit of time for your planning. You can say that this task looks like it's going to need 4 Pomodoros. And then you know that in a day, you might find only 2 such relevant Pomodoro type slots. And so you're going to need 2 days or in that week to complete this exercise. You could also do it as a team Pomodoro. So one way to think about it is that, let's say you're doing a brainstorming exercise, you're doing an exercise where you have told the team to think about a problem in a call, and you don't want to rush into groupthink, where everybody, the first person goes in, and then suddenly the whole mood becomes very oriented to a particular decision. So you can say, let's do a 15-minute Pomodoro, right? Let's start this session. Here is what you read. You ruminate over it for 15 minutes, and I will set the timer. It does 2 things. One is it gives you a very unambiguous time duration, and people know it will end. So even if you have run out of options, you still want to stretch yourself for the remaining time. And plus, you can actually plan your meeting as a set of 2 Pomodoros. One is a thinking Pomodoro, and one is a discussion Pomodoro.
Right. Yeah. And I've also made a note of flow and group think to do subsequent editions of Smart Levers on.
Absolutely. And in fact, if listeners are have other concepts that they want us to talk about in smart levers, they think it should be part of a smart lever series, just leave a comment.
Right. And Raman, quick questions. How have we used Pomodoro, and how have we got any of our clients to be using Pomodoro?
Yeah. So, like I said, Pomodoros are great ways in which to break that starting trouble. And whenever we go into a situation, it's often we have people who are sort of wary or a little unsure because they are exercising muscles that didn't know existed or building new skills. So, in any sort of learning context, or it could even be, like I said, we got people together, and it's always a question of who will go first, or it's a question of what is going to happen in this meeting. So if you plan your sessions in almost in Pomodoro terms, it can become very, very convenient for the group to behave in that particular manner. Uh, in a recent example of teaching people how to use Pomodoros, we were called in to help a batch of new college graduates at one of our clients, um, who are the idea was to why teach them or forget to teach them all the things that would keep them relevant in the future. So even if they're working in a virtual mode, they still need to have certain practices as a professional that they need to get better at. It doesn't matter if you're in front of a screen or in front of people. And as part of that, we introduced Pomodoro because, like I said at the beginning of this episode, being productive is like a survival skill. Unless you're productive, you cannot find a time to contribute to innovation, do your social capital, all those kinds of things. And so something like a Pomodoro, the knowledge of a Pomodoro method can help you be very effective. And the good thing is that it works very well for a digital first world.
Right, right. And I think you've, answered the question that I would have asked you about why do you think, this is such an important part of the Uplevelers toolkit. But a follow-up question, Ramanand, what happens if you don't know about this, or, you don't apply
Right.
this idea in your work?
Right. So the Pomodoro method isn't the only way to manage your time. There are other methods. Uh, but as long as you're using a deliberate method to plan your productivity, that should be good. The Pomodoro is one of the leading, popular, simplest ways to get started because all you need is a source of time and yourselves, right? So I think the bigger problem is that we often go through our work uh, expecting more productivity, lamenting the fact that we are not very productive. And so, what the Pomodoro method really does is to make you one, gives you something to try out, something to incorporate in your system. And also, like I said, if you've planned and you've figured out it needs 10 Pomodoros to accomplish, and you know that you're only going to get 3 Pomodoros worth of time today, then you're a little more, you're less harsh on yourself. So I think productivity is something that everyone needs to think about. Your combination of tools and systems may differ to your context, but if you don't have a method, then you're just swimming against the tide. Everything else is going to sweep you up, and then you're wondering what happened to my day.
Right. I think on that note, Ramanand, I'm going to end this episode on Pomodoro Technique. We've done a good job of this, so I'm going to reward myself by listening to a Telugu song, which you wouldn't believe it is the only song that also features any of our Smart Levers episodes because it's a Junior NTR song which talks about the Pomodoro Technique. So I'm going to go listen to that now.